Sins of the hands. This is a long section here. Section 34, among the sins of the hands are to cheat by giving less than what is agreed upon when measuring by volume, weight, or arm length, or any other way, like count. Measuring. How can you measure? By volume, that means how much space it takes up, like how big is the container. Weight, or arm length, or any other way of measuring the length, or count. So as to take the merchandise they paid for in full when buying something and to shortchange the buyer when selling. So there's two things here. One, giving less than what is agreed upon when measuring. Yani, in a sale or in a deal, giving less than what was agreed upon. That's a major sin. Well, what do these people who do this do? Allah told us in the Quran what they do, and this is what's mentioned here. So as to take the merchandise they paid for in full when buying something and to shortchange the buyer when selling by receiving the full price and giving them less than what they bought. Yani, people who do this, then when they buy something, they make sure they get every penny's worth. They will be keen to get the maximum deal and not to be shortchanged in any way. But when they sell to someone, they cheat that one if they can. This is a major sin. To steal, which means to take the belongings of another stealthily. Sneaking. If one steals what equals the value of 1/4 of a pure golden dinar, yani, that's a coin. A dinar is a golden coin. If the word golden wasn't here, still means golden. A dinar is a golden coin. So a pure golden dinar. He steals the equivalent of a dinar. A quarter, sorry. He steals the equivalent of a quarter of a dinar from its proper secured place. This dinar, it has a religious measure. It has, yani, its weight is compared to barley seeds. How many barley seeds make up one mithqal? One mithqal. A mithqal is the measure for weighing golden coin. Gold coin is measured by mithqal. Mithqal is compared to how many barley seeds, the weight of barley seeds. So one golden dinar, a quarter of that, if someone stole a quarter of a golden dinar from its properly secured place, this might need to be from its properly secured place, because adverb, i.e. a place that offers the adequate security for safeguarding such articles, yani, a place that normally offers the adequate security for safeguarding such articles, whatever those articles might be. Whatever was that article, is it something that's secured by just putting it in the house and locking the door? Is it secured by just by putting it in the closet, actually? Is it secured by putting it in a safe? Depends on what it is. So if one steals the equivalent of a quarter of a dinar, so that's not a lot, from its properly secured place, the place that offers the adequate security for safeguarding such articles, then one's hand is amputated at the wrist. And that's also under the condition that there is no ambiguity or obscurity about this person's right to that money. That's also with the condition that there's no ambiguity or obscurity about that person's right to the money. Because he might have said, for example, yeah, I was sneaking when I took that from its properly secured place, but we were partners. He didn't give me my money. So this one's not going to get his hand cut off. Then one's right hand is amputated at the wrist. Yani, they will dislocate his hand or dislocate his wrist and then chop off his hand, and then dip his wrist in boiling oil to seal the veins so that he doesn't bleed out. That means so he doesn't bleed to death. And then he will have his sad face and yani, so then now it's over. If one steals again after imposition of the first punishment, the left foot is amputated at the ankle. Then the left hand, then the right foot, yani, if he stole again, and if he stole again. If he steals a fifth time, he is disciplined according to what the caliph sees fit. When a person's hand is amputated, does he go through a numbing process? I haven't heard about that. All I know is they're gonna dislocate that, chop it off, and dip it in boiling oil. I never heard about any numbing process here. To loot, which is stealing in public, yani, snatch and run. To snatch and run. Forcible seizure, that's nice translation. I usually say extortion, to extort, or to strong arm, that means to take by force. So forcible seizure is good. I.e., to unjustly take control of someone else's right. Yeah, you said, I don't know how one would steal a fifth time after going through all of that. Yes, so you would wonder how would he do it? And how he's going to get away with it, yani. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. As if he has to be an acrobat.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Just to follow up on the judgment around stealing, does that also include, like, say, if someone is an accomplice in it, meaning that they got someone to steal for them?
No, the one who stole.
Ah, okay. So the one who actually, say, didn't do the stealing but got someone else to steal, they would also have a different
No, it's the one who
judgment?
stole. That's the one who's going to get his hand cut off. The one who stole.
Okay. Barakallahu feek.
The other one has a sin of encouraging a sin, not the sin of stealing. Or maybe even aiding in the sin if he did so. Yani cooperating. So forcible seizure, to unjustly take control of someone else's right. So take control, that includes doing so by means of a weapon or just imposing presence, like you're a bully, or because of your influence, like you're a judge or a celebrity or a mobster, of someone else's right, and right is broader than money. The right even includes his place in line. Levying a tax, yani taxing. Taxes are revenues unrightfully taken from traders on their merchandise and the like, yani the people who work, by some unjust rulers, because they are the ones who have the capability of imposing taxes. Who's going to pay taxes if nobody's going to punish them for not paying? So then some people who take control, they're going to say to the people, now we're going to take this much money from you. And if you don't pay, we're going to punish you. So what's that? That's haram. such as imposing a 1/10 tax rate. And like they'll tax anything they want to. Taxes are arbitrary. They could tax you for not having tar on your roof if they wanted to. I mean, according to them. Or whatever it is they decide to tax someone for. Or for having it. They're going to tax you for having a car. As many taxes as they can in different names. And now zakat is not a tax because it doesn't fit the definition. The taxes are the revenues unrightfully taken from the traders by some unjust rulers. That's tax. Zakat, you pay your own zakat if you want to. You don't have to submit your zakat to the ruler for him to distribute it for you. You can go and find the poor person or any other eligible person and pay him the zakat. God put that obligatory charity on you. That's not a tax. And then you're going to go out and find some poor person or some slave who wants to buy his freedom or some person who has debts or the like, some stranded traveler, those people that Allah made eligible for zakat. You can pay it to him personally. It's not a tax. And they take your tax money, then they're going to spend it any way they want to. Also, you have no say in what they're going to do with your money when they take it. Or they might tell you have a say, but you don't really. They're going to do what they want to do. Like they're going to send it to another country so they can fight a war there. And also, the jizya is not a tax. The jizya, it's a bill. Yeah, it's a bill. It is a due. Its price is known, and how much it is known and set. Yeah, I need to review though. So you're gonna ask me. I don't know the answer right now. Its price is known and set. It's not by any person's whim how that's supposed to go. It's also very cheap. When Muslims took over non-Muslim countries, when Muslims defeated some non-Muslim country and took it over, and they still had their non-Muslim population, and then the Muslims started running it. And then the Muslims removed the taxes and instead build people with the jizya. Like, don't let a kafir get it twisted for you or make it like something it's not. Those people were way more happy to pay jizya than pay their taxes, those taxes. And then after that, there's no taxes. Like you can go, that's real free markets. The real meaning of free markets, had there been Islamic uh, government and Islamic society, according to religious rules, the real meaning of free market is that you can go get your merchandise and go set up your table, and you don't have to go get a license from the city. You can set up your whatever it is you have and start selling. You keep all your money. There's no taxes, no paying the city for a license and then paying taxes. That's real free market. And there's no minimum wage. If somebody agree with you how much you're going to pay him, then he agreed to it. If he doesn't agree, if he doesn't want it, then he doesn't have to agree. Not minimum wage. That's not free market. And copyright, that's not a free market. Copyright and patent laws, that's not free market. If it was really a free market, then it's open season. You copy anything you want to copy and sell it right back onto the market. So inshallah ta'ala, when that caliphate restarts, and inshallah the rules of Islam will be implemented properly in a time like this where the people never saw something like that, and the Muslims will be in a better situation. They start learning again and practicing their religion, and they have one stronger unified voice, then the kuffar are going to see something they never saw before. And inshallah, we'll see if that caliphate will become the most powerful thing on the face of the earth. Allah knows. Taking from the spoils of war before the religious division. Yani, before they are distributed properly, i.e., before they are distributed in the proper religious manner. Yes. You say you have to pay to fish in open waters. Yeah, I get that. That's the kuffar. Why it's against the law for someone to sell single cigarettes, for example, in some places, like, I don't know, in the USA. That's not open markets or free market. That's not free market. So taking from the spoils of war before the religious division, before they are distributed in the proper religious manner. Yani, you can't take anything from the battlefield. Imagine yourself, Muslim soldier, and you're on the battlefield. You might see, who knows what you might see out there. You might see loot. You might see money just blowing in the wind because all the chaos. You might come across all sorts of very precious things, property and things like that. Can't take it. You can collect it so that it can be yani, added to the pot, but you can't take it. Even if it's just a handkerchief, you can't take it. It's haram, major sin. Homicide, that means murder, i.e., to kill unrightfully, for which expiation in any case is due. Yani, expiation in any case means any case of killing someone. Homicide is an unrightful killing. Sometimes you might kill unrightfully, sometimes you kill rightfully, sometimes you kill mistakenly. Expiation is due for all cases of killing. How would you kill mistakenly? Like you were working on your roof and then you fell and you landed on a person. Maybe landed on a baby and you killed that one by accident. Homicide, to kill unrightfully, for which expiation is due, as well as for any other killing. If the killed person were a Muslim, whether the killing is through an honest mistake, like I described for you, or a mistake made in deliberate injury, yani deliberate assault, the killing was a mistake, but the assault was on purpose. You didn't mean to kill him, in other words. You just meant to assault him. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. I knew a brother. Subhanallah. His wife used to say he was beating her. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I went to go talk to him. Told him what's going to happen if you hit her and then she falls, hits her head on the side, on the corner of the table or something. What you going to do? Accidental killing by deliberate, yani in the process of deliberate assault. Or if the killing is purely intentional. Straight up murder. The expiation is to free a non-defective male or female Muslim slave. First step. Can't skip it if it's available. Non-defective means that the slave is free of defects that would greatly restrict their ability to work, like a missing thumb or a strong limp. You cannot free such a defective slave. Just like you wouldn't sacrifice a defective animal. If unable to free a Muslim slave, then one must fast 2 consecutive lunar months. That means nonstop. If you stop for any reason, meaning even if you had an excuse to stop, then you have to start all over again. Murder subjects the murderer to being killed, yani to being executed. I think the word executed is better here than killed. To being executed because of the official meaning it has. unless the inheritors, the heirs of the deceased, forego reciprocal killing, yani they let him go. Reciprocal killing means they have the right to retaliate. Having him executed is a retaliation that they are granted. And if they wish to forego this retaliation, they may, and then spare him and he won't be executed. They can let him go. That's from the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I mean, the law of Muhammad, not the law of all prophets. In the laws of some prophets, the murderer had no option but execution. So unless the inheritors of the deceased forego reciprocal killing and forgive the murderer for compensation or without cost, yani they can forgive the murderer and still get blood money, or they can forgive the murderer for free. Murder is defined as deliberately directing a fatal act of aggression against someone using a weapon or instrument that normally kills. Yani, he deliberately assaulted the person with a lethal weapon to use that weapon for its capability of being lethal. Yani, he meant to kill him. In the case of killing someone by mistake, when there is no act of aggression intended toward the victim, or in the case of killing someone by, they translated it as semi-mistake, i.e. in a semi-deliberate manner, which is what we already described, to direct an act of aggression at someone that is generally not fatal, then the killer, yani, he didn't mean to kill him, in other words. He did mean to assault him, but he didn't mean to kill him. Then the killer in both cases is not executed in retribution. Although payment of blood money is mandatory, which is 100 camels for free, inviolable male Muslim, and half of that for free, inviolable female Muslim. Inviolable means these are people whose blood was not lawful. Sometimes a person's blood is lawful religiously. He does something that makes him now religiously eligible for execution. He has a status that religiously he can be executed. He doesn't have complete uh, uh, his life does not have complete uh, protection according to religious law. There is some provision in religious law for this one to be killed for some reason and in some way, for some reason and by some means in particular. So 100 camels for a male Muslim who doesn't have this status that I just described to you, and half of that for a female Muslim who doesn't have that status. The elements of the diyah, the blood money, vary according to the type of homicide. So this is a very detailed case here, actually. You can see all of what we just read under this one point. This is a big summary of the issue. And not just that, if you want to go beyond the homicide and add the case of assaults in general, not just homicide. Now we're not talking about all assaults, we're just talking about homicide. If you want to add the topic of assaults, then it becomes so wide, so vast, very big chapter and very interesting too. Learning about all the different types of assaults and what results in those. Different judgments depending on the assault. Like cracking his skull, knocking out his tooth, or other types of things. Breaking his jaw, and other types of things. You said not what they call assault in the Western laws, I guess it depends on what it is. They might call some things assault when it's not. It's not. Yani, religiously, it's an assault. But they might call some things assault. It's really an assault, and then they might call some things assault, and it's not religiously an assault.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I know they say in the English term for assault, one of the definitions was verbally. Is that assault in Islam?
No, not verbal here. Talk about physical assault.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Like that's why I gave you those examples. Like cracking his skull, breaking his jaw, knocking out his tooth, mutilating him, cutting off his finger, or the like, cutting off his eyelid, cutting off his buttock cheek. Scholars mention all those cases. Hitting him in such a way that make him stutter. Now he can't speak properly anymore. Or hitting him in a way that decreases intelligence. All these cases the scholars spoke about. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Yani, I could just add this last sentence here. To beat a Muslim person unrightfully or to terrorize him. So it's covered now. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna Allah yu'adhibu alladhina yu'adhibuna an-nasa fi dunya." Indeed, Allah punishes those who torture people in the dunya. So you're going to be torturing somebody. Like, for example, he's weak. He's a weakling. And you're strong. And you're just beating him. And he's like, please, please, no, please. And you got your fist balled up. Shut up. So that's haram, major sin. So does that fall under emotional torture? Never heard about something called emotional torture in our religion. But amongst the sins of the tongue is to say what hurts the Muslim's feelings without an excuse. Any question, insha'Allah ta'ala? He said, does Islamic jurisprudence have such things as lawyers? Well, I asked Shaykh Samir, is there a way that someone would be according to Islamic law, helping someone and assisting him in his religious case? He said, yes, of course. And that's the most that I got there. So I can't say yes or no there. I can just say what I just said to you now. And for example, it's possible to appoint someone to act on your behalf. So that means that's your attorney. Your attorney is the person who's acting on your behalf. You appoint him to act on your behalf. Then your attorney is going to show up and say things for you, for example. Maybe you don't even have to show up sometimes. So there's a way in the religion to authorize someone to act for you. Just the rule of wakala, authorization. But you'd have to learn the rules of that. You can't authorize a person to do anything and everything, but as a general rule, anything you can do for yourself, you can authorize someone to do for you. Wa alaikum assalam. So we just avoid all music, hip hop, freestyle. I didn't say that. Avoid the haram. Avoid the haram.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Do you know any other annoying instruments that a person can play besides the bugle?
So as far as what I learned and heard, I didn't hear an example. But as far as the rule is concerned, then if I understood the rule, this is going to include also a coach whistle, meaning it's not haram to listen to that. According to that, yeah, you can ask. Does the coach whistle go here? Because it's annoying and irking and disturbing. So then, even though you're going to blow in it, then what make it different from a bugle? I don't know. So I haven't learned an example other than the bugle, the example, and the rule is what I told you. So if you're a person who knows how to implement the rule, then you're going to implement the rule. Some people, they learn a rule, but they don't know how to implement it. So if they came across an example that fits the rule, they're not going to be sure they can apply it. And other people, Allah gives them knowledge and comprehension. They're going to learn the rule, and then they're going to find something that fits the rule, and then they're going to work according to the rule. But ask if you want to hear, ask about the coach whistle so you can be extra sure.
Uh, for the um for the synthesized instruments, is there any possible way? Well, if a person hears the synthesized instruments and they get enchantment off of that, it's haram for them to listen to it.
Yes.
Okay,
If the sound is enchanting by itself without blending with something else,
so just by itself is the issue.
that's what's going to make it haram. If it is on its own enchanting, then it's haram.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So you're going to have to listen to each sound one by one. So that's what's going to make some of those, like some music that people do, very one might say strong, because they have, guitar, bass, drum, piano, horn, flute, everything they could put in there.
Have you ever heard of a woman's voice doing that or a man's voice
Woman's
doing that?
voice is possibly enchanting. It's not haram to listen to her voice, even if it's enchanting.
Okay.
Amongst the sins of the hands is to receive or give a bribe. To give or take a bribe. A bribe in this context, the bribe in this context means money that is given to another to establish what is unjust and to prevent what is just. So in this context means the bribe, when done sinfully, means money given to another to establish what is unjust and to prevent what is just. Otherwise, offering money to ward off an injustice or to obtain a right is not sinful. To obtain a right, something you have a right to. Something you have a right to, something someone else does not have a right to withhold from you. Something someone else does not have a right to withhold from you. To burn an animal alive. To burn an animal alive, even if it is small in size. Why would its size matter? Unless it is harmful, and this method is the only way to repel it and prevent its harm. Because it's not permissible to torture creatures by fire. It's going to torture the creature. No one tortures by fire but the Lord of fire. That's a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So then you're not going to do something like put a roach in the microwave or something like that. To dismember an animal alive, to mutilate the animal, i.e. to cut off its body parts and disfigure it. Yes, to disfigure it, to mutilate it, to dismember it. So you need to be careful. There's some things people do. There's details here. In some cases, you can castrate the animal. I don't have details though. But you can't pull the nails out of the cat because you don't want him to scratch up your stuff. You can't clip the cat so he doesn't spray in your house. If he's already clipped, then you can get him. You can't have it done. And some people do some other things. One, before you get involved in those things, you should ask. Like some breeds of dog, they clip their tails so that they have only a stub there. They're not born like that with that stub. They're born with regular tail. But they cut the tail off and leave it with a stub. So be mindful about these things. The author said to play with dice or anything which involves gambling. To play with dice, even without gambling. Or to play anything that does involve gambling. Does branding the livestock, is that considered permissible? Now I don't remember. Definitely not in the face, though. So to play with dice or anything involving gambling. So the dice, that piece doesn't have to be a cube. Multi-sided piece with things written on each side. Doesn't have to be numbers. Might be numbers, might be letters. So that's haram. You can't play with that. And here, dice is the plural. And the singular is die. Play with even a single die. That's haram. And that's a major sin. Or anything which involves gambling. Yani, with or without dice, it involves gambling. Such as for two people competing against each other to put up prize money to be taken by the winner. That's a clear example of gambling. Both contestants contribute to the prize and the winner takes all. That's gambling. Not if one of the contestants puts up the prize. If he wins, he keeps his own money. And if the other one beats him, he takes the money. That's not gambling. Not according to the Shafi'is. And also, not if a third person who is not a contestant puts up the prize and the winner takes all. That's not gambling. And also, if all the contestants put up, contribute to the prize, that's going to be gambling. But if they allow one person into the game who does not have to contribute to the prize, and and he knows how to play, so he's formidable. If they admit a formidable player into the game who does not have to contribute to the prize, and if he wins, he takes all, then this is permissible.
May I ask a question, please, Shaykh?
Yes.
Is it permissible for a game like Boggle, where it teaches kids spelling and things of that nature? Can an exception be made for something like that as concerning playing with the dice?
A game like what?
Boggle.
Boggle. I'm not sure how Boggle goes.
All right, the way it works is the letters on dice, and then you shake it up, and then the kids try to match the letters like a crossword puzzle almost to spell words.
If this game is based on chance, then it's not permissible.
It's not. So does that mean that it would be permissible?
Yeah, if it relies on skill, does not rely on chance. Relies means even if there is skill involved, but if not for the element of chance, then the game doesn't work.
Barakallahu feekum.
Amin wa feekum. Which is like a card game. So yeah, there's some skill involved in playing a card game, but still relies on the element of chance, which is to shuffle the cards and then to deal them face down. And even just the shuffling the cards only, that's enough. Dealing them face up after shuffling them, Allahu A'lam. But cards are just like dice. Also, what's like dice? A plucker, like a spinner. You pluck the spinner, or some other sort of wheel. Like if you saw, what's that game called? Wheel of Fortune. Or you saw, for example, Price is Right. They have the big wheel. You have to spin it. And all that is guessing also. All that Price is Right, that's all guessing. So to play with dice or anything which involves gambling. So that's two different things there. Playing with dice, with or without gambling. Or anything that involves gambling, with or without dice. Such as for two people competing against each other to put up prize money to be taken by the winner, even children's games with walnuts and cubicle pieces. So that looks like close to your question. Even children's games with walnuts and cubicle pieces. That's how they translate it here. That's interesting translation. In old times, children played with walnuts and animal hooves. With walnuts and cubicle pieces which resemble gambling or playing with dice. That sentence I'm going to look into the Arabic here, inshallah. It is forbidden for the guardian of the child to allow the child, or to allow him, meaning him or her, to play such games. Similarly, it is unlawful to participate in the lottery, yes, or to gamble on horse races. So, as for gambling on horse races, yes, we just said you can't gamble. Participating in lottery, the way that's worded, according to the details that we learned, what's actually is unlawful is to pay to play the lottery. To pay to play the lottery, that's haram. As for uh, taking the winnings, we learned that's not haram. Yani, because it's a prize, it's a gift. They're saying, okay, if somebody has this one, we're going to pull up. Whoever has this one, we're going to give them this money. So then they pull out something, they draw something, and then somebody is, how do you call, the lucky winner, and then they give them some money. So that part, that half of it, like giving somebody a gift of money, that's not haram, but paying to participate in the lottery, that's haram.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
No, some people, what they call that again? Not a lottery, a raffle.
Yes.
Somebody pay for a raffle, pay to get into the raffle, pay for.
I think it's the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, I think raffle is lottery.
Good.
And as far, I don't know any difference between them yet. No. So the way that's worded there says participate in the lottery or to gamble on horse races. So let's take a look in the Arabic real quick, see what it says. So it says here, burning an animal, even if it's small, unless that's the only way to repel its harm. And mutilating, I think it's a better word, mutilating, which is cutting off its parts and changing its form. So changing its form even without cutting off its parts. So that's going to be mutilating it. And playing with the dye, which is called in some lands a zahr. This part is missing from the English because it probably has no relevance in English. So they didn't translate it. And likewise, everything that has gambling. Bil jozi wal ki'ab, even children's games that have joes, walnuts, and ki'ab, yani cubes. Having the appearance of cubes, having the appearance of dice. Or games having the appearance of gambling. That's what's here. So I want to ask about it. I don't remember learning about this ibara here, this wording here. Unless we want to take a look in Bukhya real quick. And it's not permissible for the guardian to allow the child to play with it. And likewise, forbidden is al-yanasib wal-lutu wal-muqamaratu bisibaq al-khayr. Yes. So let me see what it says here in the English. Similarly, it is unlawful to participate in a lottery or to gamble on horse races. So there's something in the Arabic, there's a word there that's not here. Aliyan asib. I don't know what that is. Or the lottery, or to gamble on horse races. Yes. I think I have the Bukhya right here. Aliyana. Okay. Hua. Barakallahu feek. It's lottery. Thank you. Bismillah. So the Shaykh says, see how long this is real quick. Rahimahullah. And to play with the dice or the die and everything that has gambling, even children's games with walnuts and cubes. Okay. It says the explanation is that amongst the sins of the hands is playing with the die, the nard, and it's called nard dashir. In reference to the first of the Persian kings, nard dashir, because he's the first one who came up with dice. The Prophet ﷺ said, and whoever plays with dice, it's as if he immersed his hand in the flesh of pig and its blood. That's narrated by Muslim. And the meaning, the points behind this prohibition is the chance and the guessing that leads to disputes and trouble that are pointless. And so the people have been barred from this altogether to block this evil. That's loose translation. And then, so what has explicit proof to be haram? The dice. So then compare to the dice something that's not mentioned in the Quran or the Hadith, which is going to be anything like dice, which is every game that relies, in order to play it, on guessing and chance. Yani chance. And yeah, chance. A game of chance. Not, it doesn't rely on thinking and calculating like chess and like checkers and like billiards, which is pool. Yani hitting the ball with the stick on the table. فهي haram. So any game like that is haram, these games of chance. And so chess is not included because it doesn't have this meaning. Because the reliance in chess is on thinking and calculating before moving the pieces. Then Shaykh goes on to talk about that. Then he says, and what also has the judgment of the dice is playing cards. Cards. And then if that's accompanied with winning, then it's, I mean, with a prize, if playing such game is accompanied with a prize, then it's gambling. And gambling is a major sin. If there's no prize, then it's just like playing with dice only. And that's haram too. He says, and likewise, the game that has, any game that has gambling, and the scenario that's agreed upon, the agreed upon scenario of gambling is for all contestants to contribute to the prize. And the winner takes all. So that's it. That's what's here in Bughi. It doesn't say here a game that looks like dice or looks like gambling. Or maybe they meant by surah, they meant has the judgment of. Has the judgment of dice. Let me look at that ibarah also again there. حتى لعب الصبيان بالجوز والكعاب على صورة اللعب بالنرد أو بالقمار. That statement could mean if it has the judgment of, and likewise the games of the children with walnuts and cubes. If that game has the judgment of playing with dice or gambling. So I need to ask about this ibarah here, this wording, this phrasing here. And what they said in the English is, they said, even children's games with walnuts and cubical pieces which resemble gambling or playing with dice. So let's check this wording here. It is forbidden for the guardian of the child to allow him to play such games. Similarly, it is unlawful to participate in the lottery or to gamble on horse races. Okay. He said, why is it permissible to do the raffle? No, we didn't say it's permissible to do the raffle. I said, firstly, let's look at the words that are here in the book. It says, this wording here. They said it's unlawful to participate. So use the word participate here. But I learned there's details here, so that's why I just wanted to elaborate here for you. Because the word participate is broad and maybe covers or gives the impression of too much. Maybe the impression you can get from the word participate is too broad for you to understand the rule clearly. There's detail here. What's haram when it comes to a lottery, according to what we learned, is that you cannot pay to play the lottery. You can't pay to play the lottery. Haram. It's gambling. So that's one thing. But what if some people had some money and they wanted to give it to someone as a gift, and they said, I'm gonna reach here into this jar, and whoever's name comes out or whoever's number comes out, then that's the one who's gonna win this prize. That part, doing like that, that's not haram. If you said to some people, everyone write your name on a piece of paper and put your name into this container. So they all did so. And you said, yeah, look, I have this very nice prize right here. Very nice, shiny, beautiful prize. Now I'm going to shake up this container. Whoever's name comes out of this container, I'm going to give them this nice, shiny prize. That's not haram. So is that clear for you? Let me know if that's not clear for you. Question, what about dominoes? Dominoes are haram. Yani, the game of dominoes is haram. I don't know if there's a way you can play with domino pieces that's not haram, because I don't know what you're going to do with them. But the game of dominoes, the way it's supposed to go, is haram. You said there are people who host the likes of a prize draw during events like the Molid, etc., wherein whoever arrives before a certain time receives a ticket free of charge, and if that ticket is picked during the event, they receive gifts and such. This is not permissible according to this. No, there's no problem here. Let me read that again. You said there are people who host the likes of a prize draw during events like the Molid, etc., wherein whoever arrives before a certain time receives a ticket free of charge. Okay, so let's say it's my house. Then I say anybody who gets here before such and such time, or let me say if I said first 5 people who come, I'm going to give them a ticket for them to do something with it. So up until there's nothing wrong. And if that ticket is picked during the event, so I said to those people, so give me all your tickets now, just you people who came at a certain time. Whoever's ticket I pick, I'm going to give them this prize. There's nothing haram here. I mean, wafikum. They do raffles at some Mawlid events. They say that the money is considered a donation. Yes, because they're telling you, donate the money. So then it's a donation, which means you're not gambling now. That means you're just giving the money for the sake of Allah. And then they're going to say to you, you donate money, and we're just going to give you a ticket for the raffle. And if we pull your name, we're going to give you the gift. That's not haram. You're welcome. You said the part that I'm still a little confused about is the chance part. You say, isn't that like it? There's 2 things here about the raffle or the lottery. There's 2 things here, not one thing, 2 things. And when we talked about playing games of chance, there's also 2 things there too. 2 things. One is playing a game of chance. That's one thing. Another thing is gambling. That's another thing. It's possible to gamble by playing a game of that's a game, Yani. It's possible to play a game of skill while gambling. So the gambling is haram, not the game of skill by itself. And the game of chance is haram. It's possible to play the game of chance without gambling, still going to be haram. When it comes to the lottery, Yani, paying to play the lottery, that's gambling. So gambling is haram. That part is haram. But when it comes to giving someone a gift, that's not haram. Is it clear for you, inshallah? If it's not, follow up, inshallah. Then the author said, to play unlawful musical instruments like the lute, the rabab, the flute, or string instruments. Uh, so in the sins of the ears, the Shaykh, he said it's haram to listen to the unlawful musical instruments. And here in the sins of the hands, he's saying it's haram to play the unlawful musical instruments, like the lute and the rabab, which, yani, if I'm not mistaken, both of those are string instruments, and which like some type of guitar, and the flute, which is a wind instrument and includes other types of wind instruments, horns, different sorts of horns and pipes, bagpipes, or string instruments. So wind instruments or string instruments. We talked about this. The what actually is the thing that makes what you're listening to haram, or what's being played haram? What actually is what makes what's being played haram? It is its euphoric, enchanting property without being mixed, without being blended, without being in a band. Meaning, the instrument on its own, just the solo instrument, is enough to touch you and give you the euphoria and the enchantment and the high. That's the rule itself. And if you want to quantify that, if you want to say that in practical terms, it's going to amount to wind instruments and string instruments. As I said, there's three types. The people of music say there's three types of instruments, unless there's something else. If you want to add electric, or there's something I don't know, you can tell me. They say there's wind instruments and string instruments and percussion instruments. So I don't know where the electric stuff might fit in, the synthesized ones. But traditionally, before you want to talk about using electricity, wind instruments, string instruments, percussion instruments. So the wind and the string are the ones that cause this feeling. So if you have any question there, go ahead and ask, please. To intentionally touch a marriageable female, i.e. a female who is not one's wife, nor a close relative, or the like, or, okay, not his wife, nor a close relative, or the like. Maybe or the like here means his marriageable slave woman, his unmarried slave woman, rather, not marriageable. His unmarried slave woman. Maybe that's what or the like is. Or and as for his married slave woman, I don't know. I haven't learned any rules like if you could touch her without desire. I haven't heard. He says synthesizers are just that. They synthesize the sound of the original instruments, i.e. simulate, mimic the sounds of wind, string, or percussion instruments. Maybe the word synthesizer is too specific for what I intend. Because I mean also like keyboard. Sounds that are generated not by, yani, regardless of what it's trying to imitate. I'm not talking about whether it's trying to imitate something or not. I'm just talking about how's the sound made. So these ones that come from having electrical machines that have speakers, and then when you push the button, sounds come out. I don't know how to categorize that in the traditional category. Yeah, the sound is made digitally or electronically, yes. But you following what I'm saying? Traditionally, they say there's wind instruments, string instruments, and percussion instruments based on what produces the sound. Wind instrument means you're blowing. String instrument means you are making the string vibrate. Percussion instrument means you're hitting. But that's what they say anyway. I didn't hear this categorization from the Muslim scholars. That's what the kuffar say. I said the people of music. So that's what the kuffar say. I don't know what the scholars say. He said, what if the sound is made from water, like in a glass? So that's not an instrument. That sound's not going to be haram, by the way. It's not going to be haram, but that's not an instrument. We talk about actually like a guitar, a drum, a saxophone, a piano, a harp. It's ala. Ala, it's an ala, which means instrument, meaning here, musical one. Okay. You said that's why some said that these types of devices are excluded from this rule of playing the instrument. However, not sure if they still fall under the sins of the ear. No. They're not saying these types of devices are excluded from the rule because they're not wind instruments or string instruments. They're saying these, generally, not absolutely, these devices, the sound that they make don't cause the feeling, which is the reason for the instrument to be haram. That's not absolute, though. Is it clear? If there's something not clear for you, tell me. Let's see if I can clarify for you.
Sheikh.
Yes.
So regarding the the digital keyboards that simulate those sounds, what I had heard was they said that these are not considered traditional wing or string instruments. That's why playing them is not considered unlawful because there are digitally reproduced sounds. So that's where some said that this does not constitute the same as falling under the rule of playing an instrument that has this. That's where I was trying to understand, like,
Okay.
you may play that instrument and may not fall under sin, but then if someone is listening to a sound that mimics the sound of a wind or string instrument, does that fall under that sin?
Okay. No, not necessarily a sin because it's mimicking the other sound, the sound of a haram instrument. It's not necessarily haram because it's attempting to mimic uh, the sound of a forbidden instrument. But what I want to say is, I'm repeating here, the way you said it, which you are conveying from some others, I would say it different from that because the way you said it, it doesn't focus on two things. One is the actual rule per se, which is what is it that makes the instrument haram to listen to? It's not because it's a wind or string per se. It's because of the feeling that it causes without having to be mixed with other sounds. That's one thing. Is that clear? Okay. And two, I would say, when talking about this issue of those sounds, I wouldn't personally approach it from the perspective of if the electronic sound is attempting to imitate the real instrument or not. Not that that's not a thing, but I wouldn't approach it that way. Yani, rather, I would approach it in a more abstract way, which is that it's an electronic sound. Before you look at what it's trying to imitate, or what kind of impression it's supposed to be leaving on you, what is it? So these electronic sounds, they generally don't have the power that the forbidden instruments do. But not absolutely. It's possible that some of those electronic sounds, regardless of what it might be trying to imitate or not, can cause such a feeling. Is that clear? It's just that depending on the sound, you're gonna say, this one's supposed to be a piano. This one's supposed to be guitar. If I can give you just an approximation here, take a washing machine. So you plug the washing machine in and you turn it on. So what's going to happen? It's going to start spinning, right? Then it's going to make a sound, or whatever, because there's a motor running, everything. Something's happening, so it makes a sound. So you're not going to think this sound is haram. What is this sound? This is making a sound. So it's not haram. This sound doesn't cause what those instruments cause. So just trying to give you an idea here. So they got some machines that enable them to harness like pitch of sounds. He says some of those keyboards have the sounds from the original haram instrument. You have to find the source of the sample. That's true. Always think about those keyboards, like those old rinky-dink ones. I don't know how old you are. So old ones, some Casio keyboard back in the day. They have some little, like when you play sound out of the speaker, sounds like a Jack in a Box, for example. It's not even enchanting. You say, yeah, I think that's where the confusion is for many, i.e. understanding the rule. It's 8-bit sampling. Isn't it better in this case to avoid it altogether? For a person, if he thinks he's listening to something haram, he won't listen to it. Or if a person listens to it and he feels like that's enchanting for him, he's not going to listen to it. I wouldn't say yes like that, like broad in such a way like it applies to, like it's an advice for all the people. Why? Because maybe there's something that's not haram, and another person is able to recognize that it's not haram, and then he'll listen to it, and there's no sin here. So I wouldn't say to him a broad advice. If you hear some sounds, just don't listen to them. You say, is it correct? Is it a correct statement to say generally music is haram? I wouldn't just say like that personally. Because I think people understand from that, including drums and including vocals. So I would say wind and string instruments are haram. And even that's general, really, because there's a more specific rule at play, but it's easier to say this statement than to say that very specific rule. I would say wind and string instruments are haram. I wouldn't say music is haram, unless I was in a setting where I think it's not confusing. If I were amongst people that I was afraid that some of them might think drums are haram and they might think vocals are haram, not even talk about haram lyrics, just talk about the vocals. If I were in the presence of such people who thought even drums and vocals are haram, I definitely would not just say music is haram, so that I wouldn't encourage a misunderstanding on their part. You said, so if a permissible instrument is enchanting to a person, it's still permissible to listen to it. Well, the drums, I don't know if the drums are enchanting. I just know the drums could give you energy. The woman's voice could be enchanting, and it's not haram to listen to. Some people said the haflas are enchanting to them. Oh yeah, but probably because there's a band, there's mixing there, there's blending, harmony. So it enhanced the power. What's haram? And I said this many times, every time I say it, I'm afraid it's flying by some people. What's haram, not also, yani, what's haram is that this instrument, it caused this feeling alone without being mixed with other instruments, without an ensemble, without a band. Just by itself is able to cause this feeling, then it's going to be haram. So what does that? Usually wind instruments and string instruments. I mean, somebody can stand on a stage, yeah, and he can just play his guitar or just play his piano or his violin, for example, or his harmonica, and he start making you vibe off of what he's doing. Yeah, but you could have drums by itself. It's not going to be enchanting, but you're going to like it. For example, it's going to make you bob your head. That's not haram. And then someone has a nice voice, starts singing, moves you, touches your heart. It's not haram here. Maybe even makes you cry. It's not haram. And then add that, 2 more voices, 3 more voices, all that's not haram. Or other sounds also, if you want to add, that are not on their own enchanting, that's not going to be haram. Alhamdulillah. And so, yeah, I mean, nowadays, because there's a lot more technology, there's a lot more songs that are, without looking at the content of their lyrics, not haram to listen to. Not like in the past. Like anything that came out, it really, let's say from the 70s and 80s, even the 80s, they started to get more into, in the 70s too, but in the 80s more, started getting more into electronic sounds, and still had a lot of music, haram music. And even into the 90s, still had a lot of haram music. Was in the 2000s, I'd say, that became even more possible to find more and more songs that actually don't have some haram sounds in them. But if you listen to something from mid 90s, early 90s, and back before that, 50s, 60s, all that's haram music. Except maybe, back in the 50s, they used to do doo-wop. So they'll be like on the street corner, just a cappella, and have different, some guy with low voice, some guy with high voice, etc. Snapping. That's not haram.
Shaykh,
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
What about the? I was told that there's a drum that is shaped like the woman is haram.
Yes, that drum is haram. For sure it's haram to play. Is it haram to listen to? I don't know.
Okay.
Or what if you saw some people beating on a table and then they were singing to somebody beating on a table, or reciting poetry over someone beating on a table? It's not haram. You said Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror would be considered haram. Well, I haven't heard that song in a long time, but if I remember it, I think that's haram. You gotta tell me all of that's just electronic sounds in there? I don't think so. I don't know if Michael Jackson has a single halal song you can listen to. He said, do you have to investigate if a song has real instruments or not? I don't know. If you can't tell the difference, I don't know. Amin wa iyyakum. I asked Sheikh Samir a question once about this so many years ago. As if I asked him this question. And he said, no. I was asking, is it haram to listen? You're not sure? That's what I thought I asked him. I thought I asked him, if you're not sure what you're listening to, is it haram to listen to it? And they said, no. But then I asked him another time, just to be sure. And then he told me, maybe he said, I don't know. He gave me a different answer the second time. I said, last time I asked you a question, you told me no. Maybe it was a different question. He said, yes, maybe. MashaAllah. So I don't know. So and did some scholars say these instruments are not haram? Yes. What do we say about that? We say this saying, according to what I learned, this saying is weak saying and is not reliable. It is based on not having the evidence for the prohibition. That's what I learned. There is such saying from some scholars that these instruments are not forbidden, and that the response of those who said that it is forbidden to those who said that it's not is that their saying is based on the lack of evidence on their part, so that they would be sure that it's haram, but actually is haram, and that their saying should not be taken. To intentionally touch a marriageable female, or if you want, eligible female. Eligible means marriageable. Eligible doesn't mean desirable. i.e., a female who is not his wife, or a close relative, or the like, yani, like a slave woman of his, unmarried slave woman. It is prohibited if he touches her without a barrier, that means skin on skin, or touching her nails, or her hair, or her teeth, without a barrier, whether with or without a desire. But if you touch her skin, it's going to break your wudu in the Shafi'i school, with or without desire. Because touching the skin is thought to be the touch of desire, as opposed to touching the hair or the nails or the teeth. Or to touch her lustfully with a barrier. Yani, even through her clothing or through a barrier, but lustfully. Touching lustfully is prohibited even if the person in this case is of the same gender. Yani, so means this is homosexual. Or a mahram, which means persons having some like inclinations of incest, such as a man touching another man lustfully, or a woman touching another woman lustfully, or a man touching a close relative lustfully. Close relative as opposed to a cousin. Don't forget the rule. If there's a qualifier, there should be a reason for that qualifier, or else there's no point. It's going to be pointless. Why say close? Is there any relative not included here so that there should be a qualification? Yes, the cousin. Even the first cousin is not here considered a close relative in this case, because all cousins are marriageable, even first cousin, though first cousin is disliked to marry. You said, when I was in hygiene school, I learned you can't even touch their bones after they're dead. Their bones, I haven't heard about the bones personally, but you can't touch the skin or the hair. Yani, or the teeth. So the teeth are bones. Other bones other than the teeth, I personally didn't learn about. But that's true. Still can't touch it after the person is dead or after it's detached. Like a woman brushed her hair. A marriageable woman brushed her hair. And then her hair was in your brush. Now, you can't look at that hair and you can't pull that hair out with your hand without a barrier, like without a glove. So what you're going to do, for example, you're going to, once your eye falls on that, that's your first glance, that's not haram. You're going to say, oh, I can't look there. Let me go get some rubber gloves. Got my rubber gloves. Now let me pull this hair out of this brush without looking, for example. Can't touch her clipped nails. And if it's her toenails, you can't look at them either. To depict that which has a soul, yani to depict something alive, even if it's fictional. So someone would say, what if it's SpongeBob? So yeah, even SpongeBob, because the meaning is that he's alive. Whether or not it is three-dimensional. Three-dimensional means a figure, a statue, a figurine. And there's other words there. So according to this saying, meaning to say whether or not it's three-dimensional, whether or not it's a figure, a figurine, that means even if you drew it on a piece of paper or on the board, and even a stick figure, for example, because the meaning of the stick figure is that this is a person. You put a circle for the head, you put a line for the torso, and you put two lines for the arms, two lines for the legs. So then that's going to include photographs And Sheikh Samir told us also what appears on your screens, TV screens, phone screens. According to this saying, all these pictures of things that can be alive are haram, and it's obligatory, according to Ash-Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa, Ash-Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa, to destroy these images. That means to render them such that they would not be alive. That would be by decapitating them, for example. Would drawing the Transformers fall under this rule? Yeah, because Transformer, if he's in robot form, then basically is a man. Robot form is representation of a man. Head, torso, arms, and legs, like a man. And what make that more clear for you is that then they say they have robot of bird, robot cat, etc., robot dinosaur. So that means, and what's the regular one? He's a man. But if you have it in vehicle form or otherwise, like if it transforms into cassette tape, then this form is not haram form. But if he transforms between being a man and an animal, then khalas, there's not, you can't use that one. But you can take his head off, for example, and then it's not going to be haram. Or it turns into a gun, for example. It's not haram form. According to the Malikis, you can depict what has a soul as long as it's not a figurine. So I'm not going to dwell there now, but if you have questions, feel free. The author says, to refrain without a valid religious excuse from paying one's zakah. You said, what about bodies that don't have discernible organs like arms and legs, etc., upon which a face is drawn like a blob of dough or a pile of snow that has a face drawn on it? So the image is, think about image like a word. Doesn't a word have a meaning? So the image has a meaning, like a word has a meaning. So what's the meaning of this image here? Yeah. So if your answer is, this is the whole body. This is snowman here. That's his whole body there. For example, if that's the meaning, then it's haram. If the meaning is, it's just his head. This is just the head only, then just the head is not haram. Or the chest up, just the chest, for example, and the head, that's not haram.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So the question is that if you've got, like, for example, pillows, which, as an example, you've got an avocado, which has got a face on it. Is that haram then? Because my sister's got one, and I said to her to take the eyes out, but I don't know if it's
It's
allowed or
not
not.
permissible to make the form, but if some food were in the form of a figure, you can still buy it and eat it. Not to say that the figure is permissible though, but you can buy it and eat it.
I'm talking about pillows.
Oh, I thought you said avocado.
It's an avocado. It's a pillow, but it's like an avocado shape and color, but then it's got a face on it.
So face is not haram. Is that the meaning of the picture? That is just the face, or the meaning is that it's the whole body? If that's the meaning is the whole body, then that's the whole body.
No, it's just the face, only the face.
Just face is not haram. Like maybe have a backpack for your small kid, and the backpack is just like the face of a cow or a cat. That's not haram. Just the face or the head.
Jazakallah.
To refrain without a valid religious excuse from paying one's zakat. So here, without a valid religious excuse, if that's not in the Arabic, then it doesn't really need to be there. But if it's not in the Arabic, then they just want it to be clear. Otherwise, it's clear. We're talking about here the sins. So if you're sinful, that means you don't have a valid religious excuse. If one had a valid religious excuse, then this wouldn't be here. To refrain from paying one's zakat, i.e., to neglect paying all or part of it, excuse me, even while paying the other part, yani paying some of it and not all of it, which that's not valid. That's like, for example, praying 2 rakats of dhuhr. It's not even valid. Just praying 2 and stopping. After it is due, and after one is able to give zakat, or to pay that which does, yeah, or to pay that which does not suffice, yani that which is not valid to pay, as obligatory zakat, such as, according to 3 out of 4 schools, there's no zakat on cash. There's no zakat on cash. Did you just hear me right? Yeah, that's right. There's no zakat on cash, according to 3 of the 4 schools. And it's not because they didn't know about money that's not gold or silver cash. They knew about paper money, and they knew about coins that are not made of gold or silver, the old Arabs. But Allah, with their knowledge of that, didn't reveal it in the Quran or the Sunnah. So 3 out of the 4 madhabs, since they have knowledge of this and didn't find it in the revelation, then they said it doesn't count then. They didn't say, yeah, the revelation says gold and silver, and we're going to compare to gold and silver anything that's circulated like gold and silver. So then, any of your cash flow, actually, that's not in 3 out of 4 madhabs. What's the solitary madhab here? The Hanafi school. Hanafi school said there is zakat on anything circulated like gold or silver. Yes. Then, furthermore, since I'm here, if you put your money in a bank that deals in riba, then you have locked yourself into the Hanafi school. You have locked yourself into the Hanafi school. Then you need to learn the rules of zakat according to the Hanafi school, because only by the Hanafi school would you be able to put your money in a bank that deals with riba. So if you don't learn the rules of zakat according to the Hanafi school for the money that you put into the bank that deals with riba, then, as meaning, if you say, I'm going to follow the other schools that don't count cash other than gold or silver as being subject to zakat, then that means you're saying, rather, I'm just going to be sinful for dealing in riba. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to say, I'm going to be sinful for dealing in riba, and take the saying of the 3 schools that there is no zakat on other than gold or silver when it comes to cash. Rather, you're going to say, I'm not going to be sinful if I follow the Hanafi school and put my money in this bank that deals with riba. But now I'm locked into the Hanafi school because I have no other way. So that means I'm going to have to learn the rules of zakat according to the Hanafi school, which I'm not going to go over today. Question. A further example is a clock with a face or a smile drawn on. Okay, so the answer is clear for you, because we're saying a body, something that can be alive. A head, a face, a hand, a toe, a foot, a smile, a nose only. None of that is haram. Question. You said, my father is not mentally well. He has been under the care of the government and care home. I'm about to take over his responsibility and money. He has never paid zakat that I am aware of, as this money is from the government. When I take over, do I pay his zakat from his money? And how do I go paying? Like, do I pay zakat for his whole life or current year that I take over? If you're in charge of his money, then you're going to have to pay the zakat on his money. It's not your responsibility to know his records. So it's going to be your responsibility once you come in charge with that money. From the time you come in charge with that money, it's going to be your responsibility to make sure that any rights over that money are fulfilled. It's not your obligation to research the history here. So to pay that which does not suffice as obligatory zakat, like someone who's not following the Hanafi school and he did not learn the rules of zakat properly, and he does have some considerable amount of cash, like he has thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, and he just assumes I have so much money, there must be zakat on my money, and then he just pays something. So that's not valid. Or someone has a chicken farm and then they ask a sheikh, is there zakat on my chickens? And then he says, no. And then that one says, what? You're telling me I have all these hundreds and hundreds of chickens and there's no zakat on any of them? I don't believe you. And then they pay some sort of zakat. Allah knows where they got it from, how they determined that. So amongst the sins of the hands is to pay that which does not suffice as the obligatory zakat, or to give zakat to those who are not entitled to it, such as giving it to build a mosque or a school or a hospital or the like, cemetery or anything else. He says, so I would go forwarding by year under my care. From the time you get in charge of that money, then you're going to make sure that any rights there are over that money are fulfilled because you're in charge of it. Yani, in your case here, you said that's your father. That could be your child's money, for example. That could be someone's money that you're in charge of. So you're going to have to make sure it gets paid properly. I mean, what to refrain from paying the employee his wage, that's major sin. His wage that he deserves. Yes. And likewise, to refrain from working for the employer and giving him the work that he deserves. Same thing, really. The employee, he gets paid by the employer. And the employer, he gets paid by the employee. In this way, it's like a sale. When you do a sale, don't both sides get something? Yes. So you can't just, for example, take someone's money and not give it back. Give him something in return. And that's supposed to be a sale. Remember here, a hiring is a risky deal. You are liable to get into some issue. I won't go further there, but if you have a question, you can ask. To refuse to give the starving person what he needs, Muslim that is, so that he wouldn't die from hunger. Or to refrain from saving a drowning person.
Sheikh Ra'i?
Yes.
Pertaining to the question that person asked, that he's taken over his father's money, did he say it was government money?
I think so. Let me see.
So if it's government money, what does he mean? Like that money a person only takes from it what a person needs, correct?
It says here, so my father is not mentally well. He has been under the care of the government and care home. I'm about to take over his responsibility and money. He has never paid zakat that I'm aware of, as this money is from the government.
Mm-hmm.
Saying this money is from the government, that statement alone is not enough for me to say something, like to answer your question.
Yeah, but the only reason I asked is so the person would get the proper answer. That's what I meant by it.
Yes. I mean, wafikum. Thank you for drawing it to my attention. But yes, that's a good point. Thank you. It did slip me too. So a person needs to learn there. This statement alone, though, is open to interpretation. This money is from the government, and I'm not asking you to explain it to me, but it is open to interpretation. So when I answered you, the answer was under the assumption that it's his money that he has to pay zakat on. With without going into the detail of the exact source of how he got that money from the government. When I answered the question, I didn't think about what does it mean to say that his money is from the government, because this could mean different things. So assuming that it's his money that he has to pay zakat on, then you're gonna have to, as the caretaker, make sure the zakat is paid from it. You say he gets paid disability money and living money from the government, and it has been built up to thousands. So if that money is his money and subject to zakat, he's gonna have to pay zakat for it. Like he had some amount of money that's his money, he owns it, and he had it for a year, and it fulfills the quota. He's gonna and fulfills the conditions according to, for example, Hanafi school. Then he's gonna have to pay zakat on it. Should you pay it? So if you knew that, so really I answered that for you, which is any right that you know is over this money. If there's any right over this money that you know about, then since you're in charge of that money, then you need to take care of it. And when I said it's not your responsibility to do research and to know the history, that's one thing. It's not your responsibility to know the history so that you can do backlogging and find out how much zakat you had to pay for the last 20 years. Not your responsibility. But anything that you do know is a right over that money. While you're in charge of it, you're going to have to take care of it from that money. It's clear for you? I mean, well, yeah. So, to refuse to give a starving person what he needs so that he would not, avoiding contractions in formal writing, die from hunger, so that he would not die from hunger, comma, or to refrain from saving a drowning person, no comma here, without having an acceptable excuse. Or to refrain from saving a drowning person without having an acceptable excuse for failing to act in both scenarios. Yani the starving person and the drowning person. And likewise, somebody is freezing and he needs some clothing. Or he's just, for example, his nudity is exposed and needs clothing, even if he's not freezing. On the other hand, if the potential saver were excused in his, for his inaction, then he bears no sin. There's that English we were talking about in the one of the classes. He bears no sin. Yani, so that's English language. But Arabic, if you translate it like that, you'd say يحمل لا خطايا يحمل لا ذنب, for example. He bears no sins. It's not strong like that. لا يحمل ذنبا, for example. He does not bear a sin. To write what is prohibited to say. Yes. Yani anything that's a sin of the tongue is a sin to write, such as backbiting, gossiping, or other ordinarily verbal sins, like blasphemy, with any implement used to produce writing, yani a pen, or a keyboard, or a printer, to betray. That is the opposite of honesty. Interesting. So in some translations, older translations, they said to betray, which is the opposite of good advice. This includes betrayal in one's deeds or sayings, comma, such as consuming or utilizing a trust one was given to safeguard. or disavowing it, that means denying that it was given to you, and refusing to admit that one accepted it for safekeeping, that's betrayal. And also betrayal in manifestations of misleading characters, by tricking someone into believing that one is a qualified custodian when he is not. Yani. So betrayal is going to be by giving bad advice on purpose, or consuming a right with which one was entrusted to preserve, not to consume, or to take a position while knowing that one's not qualified for it. All of that is betrayal. And so ends the sins of the hands. You said that a head is not prohibited. Does that mean one can draw a head and the body just separated in the Shafi'i school? No. The Shafi'i says it's not permissible to start the picture. It's not permissible to initiate. They say it's not permissible to initiate the image. But if it's there already, you can keep it. Just a head, for example. Betrayal is like giving bad advice on purpose and using something that you agreed to just hold it only, not to use it, just to guard it. Like embezzlement, for example. Or denying the trust that you were given. So someone left money with you, and then when he came back, you say, "What money, bro?" He says, "The money I gave you." He says, "What? What are you talking about?" So that's betrayal right there. Or also agreeing to take a position that you know you're not qualified for. Embezzlement's when, for example, you're a treasurer. That means you just hold the money only. And then what you do, every now and then you open up the box, you pull out a bill, and you keep it for yourself. And then again and again, for example. So let's stop here then, inshallah ta'ala, and we'll start the next section from the top next week if Allah enables us. Ameen wa iyyakum. Do you have any other question I can answer for you?
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Question I'm gonna get to is a woman who's married. She has a husband. He passed away. She don't know that she found out that he had other wives, that he didn't pay the dowry.
Okay.
Now, he got money, all his debts. Do she got to pay them debts? And
yes, we learned that in the section of the dealings, that the money of the dead person is like a collateral. First things that are paid are his debts. What do you have? Three things: the debts, the will, and the inheritance. Debts get paid first. His debts to God and his debts to the people. Debts to God is like he didn't pay his zakat, or he has a hajj that he was obligated to perform and he didn't do it. Debts to the people is like what you're asking me.
all right, and that's to the people. I mean, you just said something about I don't know. It's a difference though it pertains to this. It's not the person's obligation, like you said about the young man, his father. It's not his obligation to find out his debts in the past. Now, for her, she finds out that he has other wives, but she don't know is that true or not. Them people come to her and tell her that he owes.
And she didn't find out yet.
No, she didn't find out yet. So How should we be able to know that the woman or his ex-wife?
Then she can say to them, can your witnesses contact me, for example?
Uh-huh. So to the witness come up front, she had to hold on to that money until they come up front?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. All right. This is a again. MashaAllah. Barakallah fi shaykh.
Amin Wafiq. You said the cases you gave sound like betrayal using the tongue. Okay. But betrayal is broader than a sin of the tongue, though. Betrayal, the word betrayal doesn't mean a statement, so that it's exclusively as a sin of the tongue. You said in charge of someone's finances, but they apostated and will not return to Islam. Do you continue to manage their finances? You hold it. And do you still give their money in zakat? Yes. Question: if a man, if a Muslim says to another Muslim "Merry Christmas" jokingly, what is the judgment? It's not explicit blasphemy. And also, I would like to know about the case if a Muslim says it to a blasphemer, not explicit blasphemy. Is betrayal and slander the same? No, because betrayal has in it giving someone the wrong impression, while slander, yani, is something else. Is defamation. I mean, wafiqun.
Shaykh Ra'id, another question
Yes, yes.
pertaining to that other question that that person asked. He's saying that his dad gets disability money from the government. So that money is not subject to zakat because he only takes from it what he needs.
Okay, but
Correct?
he took from it what he needs. Then does it become his or it doesn't become his?
If he takes from it what he needs, he wouldn't have anything saved up because the rest of it, they would pay for masalih al-muslimin. Isn't that the correct judgment about the
Not
government money?
necessarily. If he takes from it what he needs, maybe he takes it when he needs it, and then it's his. And then now that it's his, maybe he winds up not spending it, for example.
And what if he had, like, he took the whole amount and he doesn't need the whole amount, so he spent from it what he needed and the rest he saved it?
So, so the meaning of my answer to you is that it's not
There's
necessarily
details.
necessary that because it came from the government that it's not going to be zakat applicable.
Okay.
If the
Okay.
conditions of zakat are fulfilled in that money, he's going to have to pay zakat.
So that means there are details pertaining to the question and details to what type of money that a person collects. Or
But there's something seems you're missing here, which is once he got it, it's his now. So he can collect it, assuming he can collect it. Once he took it, it's his. So your
okay,
question is about how much he can collect. While what I'm saying is, what does he actually have that's his?
I understand. I understand. But isn't it the case that a person takes only what he needs from it?
Yes. So what if what he took was a new salt, then it became his, and then he didn't use it after it became his, and then
So
he
it be
kept it for a year.
so
Then
it
he's
would
gonna
be subject.
have to pay the zakat. If the yani all the conditions fulfilled, he's gonna have to pay the zakat.
Okay, then there's some points I didn't know before. Barakallahu feekum.
Amin wa fikum. Yeah, just here separate these two things. Don't blend these two. One is how can he take this money? Can he take this money? And how much he can take? That's its own thing. The other is he has money. Is it subject to zakat? So that's another thing.
So, just to clarify, he doesn't have control over his money. The carers do. The carers decide how
Yes,
much
that's
he's
clear.
allowed to spend and how much
That's
he's
clear.
not. So, as time's gone on, the money has built up, and then from next year, I'm taking over. So when I take over, this is why I wanted to clarify that. Do I with that money that he's got now that's in the bank, because obviously it's quite a lot now. So I want to clear his debts, and I want to pay off the zakat and anything else that needs to come with it.
If the rules of zakat apply to this money, then he has to pay the zakat. When we learned the chapter of zakat, they didn't say, as far as I have learned, that but if this money came from the government, or if this money came into his possession under some condition, none of that learned is a condition for zakat. Zakat is due on someone who has ownership. One of the conditions of zakat is ownership. So if it's his money and the rules of zakat apply to it, he's going to have to pay the zakat for it. Or whoever's in charge of his money is going to make sure the zakat is paid.
So when I talk to the carers, they will not pay towards zakat because that's not their responsibility. This is what they've told me. So this is one of the reasons why I said, look, I'm going to take over, because this is not right. He's a Muslim at the end of the day. He's not mentally well. He doesn't practice Islam, but he knows he's Muslim. So I get him to say things like, I'd get him to do the Shahada, or whatever he can learn, or he can speak, for example, the Fatiha. So this is why I'm taking over, because I feel that he's going to lose out in the long run from the Akhirah.
That's fine. If it's his money, all I'm going to say, now I'm probably not going to say anything other than this word I just said like 5 times, but I'm trying to be patient, not against you. I'm just remembering a Shafi'i. If it's his money, he owns the money, and the rules of zakat apply to it, then the zakat needs to be paid. That's it. That's all I'm saying, not more. How he got the money really is not the issue here for me in my answer that I'm giving to you. If it's his and the rules of zakat apply to it, he's going to have to pay the zakat, or whoever's in charge of that money.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Just going back to the question around betrayal and how it falls under the sins of the hand, is there an example you gave? Have I missed it, about how you would be betraying in this way, where it's among the sins of the hand?
Yeah. Somebody gave him a trust and then he consumed it.
Like amana.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
May we ask another lesson regarding marriage? Ask about another lesson regarding marriage? Yes, go ahead, please. Amin Wafiq. Also, by the way, the Hanafis have another rule. You asked me about if he can only take as much as he needs. Hanafis have another rule. It's permissible to take a kafir's money with his acceptance. If a kafir accepts to give you his money, the Hanafi said you can take it. So I don't know what's their details, what's their restrictions. يَجُوزُ أَخْذُ مَالِهِ بِرِضَاهِ. That's qaida to the Hanafis. Under what rules or what restrictions or how open it is, I don't know. In the Hanafi and Shafi'i school, if the dowry is not or not valid, then what is due? I don't know what the Hanafi said, but in Shafi'i school, Mahrul Mithl is due. The dowry of a woman like her. What a woman like her takes as a dowry is going to be what she deserves. So what does that mean? That means you're going to look into her, into what makes her more or less desirable for marriage, as well as comparing her to her mother and her sisters and her aunts and the women of her society. You use all of that to narrow down what a woman like her takes as a dowry. You're going to consider her age, her beauty, her knowledge, if she's virgin or not, or if she has children or not. And then you pay her what a woman like her takes as a dowry.
Sheikh,
And her ability to speak well, as well as her ability to speak well. Yes, go ahead, please.
so the question along with this is that, say it's a husband and wife, the wife divorces the husband because he is not practicing Islam and he's not well.
Divorce her husband.
Yeah, she divorces the husband because of the
Wife
reasons.
cannot divorce her husband.
She cannot.
No, she can't.
And he becomes a kafir.
She can't divorce her husband, so he's becoming a kafir is something else. But she can't divorce her husband. The man divorces, not the woman.
Okay, I was going to ask that if that is the situation, then the dowry or the stuff that the wife has got, then does she give it back or does she
If
keep it?
what's the situation?
The situation is that they got married. She's divorced him because he's not practicing Islam. He's not giving her
She didn't
money.
divorce. She's not divorced. She can't divorce him.
I know, but the law of London or UK, the way they've done it. So now it's the situation
That's
that
not
she's got.
valid. Whatever they did, whatever
Right.
the law of London said, that's not valid here. If she married him with a valid marriage contract, then she's his wife. She can't divorce him.
Okay.
She's still his wife. Even if she went through the city to get divorced, she's still his wife. You said, does she mean her contract is breached due to his apostasy? I don't know. I'm letting her just word her own question here. So if you want, you can ask your question again.
I mean, I don't know if it comes under that. It's just the fact that he does not practice Islam at all.
Oh, that's
And
not
he
apostasy.
refuses. So and he refuses to be basically a Muslim or to do anything.
And not doing the obligations is not apostasy. And not avoiding the sins is not apostasy. It's possible for a person to be a sinful Muslim, so he's still a Muslim. That's not going to breach his marriage contract. Being a sinful Muslim who doesn't do his obligations and doesn't avoid the sins is not going to breach his marriage contract.
Okay, I'll pass this message on.
Okay. So if they got married religiously, if they never got married religiously, then she's not his wife in the first place. So if they got married religiously and according to the state, and then she didn't like him anymore, so she went to the state to get divorced, doesn't mean she's divorced religiously though. She's still his wife. As long as he hasn't divorced her. You said she may ask for divorce though, but he is the one who has to divorce, and she can't ask for a divorce either unless she has an excuse. The divorce is the right of the man. That's what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam. That's why the sisters have to be so careful before they get married. If he does not practice, that's an excuse. If this is an excuse, then she can ask. I haven't learned that it is an excuse. And I'm not denying that. I'm just saying the rule. She can't ask without an excuse for a divorce, even if she doesn't like him. She's not attracted to him. She doesn't like him. And he makes her cringe. And she's miserable. But, for example, he provides for her. Wait. Any last question? آمين وإياكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك